When humanity finally achieved faster-than-light travel, the Galactic Council expected us to be grateful, humble, and properly awed by their advanced civilization. What they got instead was Jack O'Malley, a diplomat whose primary qualifications included winning 3 hot dog eating contests and once successfully negotiating peace between rival college football tailgate parties. Welcome to the 47,923rd Annual Species Assessment Conference, droned Administrator Plink Plonk, their voice modulator struggling to contain what could only be described as weaponized boredom. We will now evaluate Earth's application for provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Jack slouched in his chair, trying not to laugh at how the administrator's multiple eye stalks wiggled with every word. The giant chamber looked like someone had taken the United Nations Assembly Hall and hired H.R. Geiger to redecorate it while high on space caffeine. I must note, Plink Plonk continued, consulting their quantum tablet, that humanity's application is concerning. Your species still thinks launching things into space by creating controlled explosions is an acceptable method of transportation. Works, doesn't it? Jack shrugged, propping his feet up on the ancient ceremonial desk. Several of the council members gasped. One appeared to faint, though it was hard to tell with the gelatinous ones. You still use internal combustion engines. They make nice vroomy noises. Your planet's internet is 40% pictures of small furry animals wearing clothing. And your point is... Plink Plonk's eye stalks twisted into what Jack assumed was the alien equivalent of a tension headache. Mr. O'Malley, your species has barely mastered basic gravity manipulation. You still think quantum entanglement is spooky. You solve most of your engineering problems with something called duct tape. Hey now, Jack sat up straighter, pointing a finger at the administrator. Duct tape is a perfectly legitimate universal constant. Even light can't escape it if you use enough layers. A low murmur rippled through the assembled aliens. Jack could have sworn he heard someone in the back say, "He's got a point about the duct tape," before being quickly shushed. "Perhaps," said another council member, this one looking like a cross between a peacock and a disco ball, "we should simply proceed with the traditional assessment protocols." "Oh yes, excellent suggestion." Plink Plonk's eye stalks perked up with what Jack recognized as barely concealed malicious glee. "Mr. O'Malley, your species will be given 3 problems that have stumped our finest minds for centuries. Solve them and Earth will be granted provisional membership. Fail and you'll have to wait another century to reapply." Jack grinned, pulling out his phone. "Mind if I phone a friend or 3? "You may assemble whatever team you deem necessary," Plink Plonk said with the confidence of someone who had just set an impossible task, "though I doubt even your most brilliant minds could solve these challenges." "Brilliant isn't exactly what I had in mind," Jack muttered, scrolling through his contacts. "Hey, Crash?" "Yeah, it's Jack. Remember that time you said you owed me for bailing you out of that situation with the experimental rocket fuel and the mariachi band? Time to pay up. Bring Luna and Billy Bob. And yeah, the one they call the algorithm. We've got some impossible problems that need solving." The council chamber grew quiet as Jack ended his call, his grin widening. "So about these impossible problems of yours." Plink Plonk's eye stalks drooped slightly. Somewhere in the vast database of galactic knowledge, a new entry was about to be made about the most dangerous phrase in the universe. A human saying, "No problem." 3 hours, 2 minor explosions, and 1 severely traumatized alien security team later, Jack's experts arrived at the Galactic Council chamber. Crash Thompson came first, still wearing his partially singed lab coat and carrying what looked suspiciously like a duffel bag full of high explosives. Dr. Luna Boom Boom Rodriguez followed, her wild hair crackling with static electricity from what she insisted was just a minor quantum accident. Billy Bob, the algorithm Johnson, brought up the rear, typing on 3 holographic keyboards simultaneously while mumbling about optimizing chaos theories. These, Jack announced to the council with all the pride of someone introducing their deeply questionable life choices, are humanity's finest problem solvers. "Is that man's lab coat actively on fire?" Plink Plonk asked, pointing at Crash. "Just a little bit," Crash replied cheerfully, patting out the flames. Don't worry, it's flame retardant, mostly. Luna pulled out a device that looked like a cross between a calculator and a small nuclear reactor. So what are we blowing up? I mean solving. What are we solving? Actually, Billy Bob interrupted without looking up from his keyboards, according to my preliminary calculations, there's a 73.2% chance we'll end up blowing something up anyway. The council members collectively scooted their hover chairs back a few feet. The first challenge, Plink Plonk announced, trying to regain control of the situation, involves stabilizing a quantum star that's been fluctuating between dimensions. Ooh, spicy! Luna's eyes lit up. I love quantum physics. It's like regular physics, but with more opportunities for things to go catastrophically wrong. The second challenge requires finding a cure for space hiccups, a temporal displacement condition affecting multiple species. Have you tried turning the species off and on again? Billy Bob asked, finally looking up from his screens. That's not how biology works, Plink Plonk protested. Not with that attitude, Crash muttered. And the final challenge, Plink Plonk continued, eye stalks twitching nervously, is to repair the council's ancient elevator, a device that has confounded our engineers for millennia. Is that the big fancy quantum lift in the main hall? Jack asked. The one with the out-of-order sign in 17 different languages? Indeed, it was built by the precursors themselves using technology we barely understand. Luna was already scanning the elevator with her definitely not regulation tricorder. Looks like a basic quantum mechanical temporal spatial transport system, with a slight case of existential uncertainty. I know what those words mean individually, Crash said, but together they make my brain hurt. Think of it like a regular elevator, Billy Bob explained, but sometimes it forgets which floor it's on, which dimension it exists in, and occasionally whether it's an elevator at all. Oh, Crash brightened, so we just need to remind it that it's an elevator. Through the careful application of advanced physics and complex mathematical formulas, Luna began. Or we could just hit it really hard with something, Crash suggested. The human team huddled together, speaking in urgent whispers while the council watched in mounting horror. Words like explosive decompression, quantum entanglement, and maybe just a small thermonuclear device drifted across the chamber. Jack turned back to Plink Plonk with a smile that should have sent any sensible being running for the nearest escape pod. We'll take the cases. All three of them, at once. Plink Plonk's eye stalks went pale. That's not... I mean, you're supposed to... Time management, Jack declared. Luna, you take the quantum star. Billy Bob, start working on those space hiccups. Crash, try not to completely destroy the elevator while fixing it. No promises, Crash replied cheerfully, already pulling something suspicious-looking from his duffel bag. You can't just, Plink Plonk sputtered. There are procedures, protocols, safety regulations. Oh, those are more like guidelines, really, Jack waved dismissively. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? The entire council chamber fell silent at those words. In the great cosmic database, another entry was hastily added. When a human asks, what's the worst that could happen, the worst will absolutely happen, but somehow they'll probably still succeed. Luna was already halfway out the door, muttering calculations about particle acceleration. Billy Bob had somehow acquired even more holographic keyboards, and Crash was looking at the ancient elevator with the same expression a 5-year-old gives to a piñata. Should we stop them? One council member whispered to Plink Plonk. I'm not sure we can, Plink Plonk replied, watching as humanity's finest scattered to their respective tasks. May the precursors have mercy on us all. Billy Bob, the algorithm Johnson, sat cross-legged in the medical bay, surrounded by holographic displays showing wave patterns that looked like someone had given a seismograph too much caffeine. Around him, various alien species suffered from space hiccups, a condition that caused them to randomly phase in and out of different temporal states. Fascinating, he muttered, watching as a crystalline being hiccuped itself 2 minutes into the past and accidentally high-fived itself. It's like their bodies are playing temporal hopscotch. The head medical officer, who looked like a walking collection of glowing mushrooms, hovered nearby. "We've tried everything. Temporal stabilizers, quantum suppressors, holding their breath, drinking water upside down." "Have you tried scaring them?" asked Luna, who had wandered in after solving the quantum star situation. "That was our first attempt," the doctor sighed. "Unfortunately, it just caused them to hiccup themselves into next week. We're still waiting for some of them to come back." Billy Bob wasn't listening anymore. His fingers flew across his keyboards as lines of code streamed past. "The hiccups are creating a resonance pattern across space-time. It's almost like music." "Space music?" Luna perked up. "Like that time you accidentally turned the Mars rover's data into a dubstep track?" "Exactly." Billy Bob's eyes lit up. "The hiccups are happening because their temporal frequencies are out of sync. We just need to give them something stronger to sync to." "Please tell me you're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting," the doctor groaned. "Space dubstep!" Billy Bob and Luna shouted in unison. Crash stuck his head through the doorway, somehow covered in more soot than when they'd last seen him. "Did someone say dubstep? I've got some great explosive bass drops." The doctor's mushroom caps all wilted simultaneously. "Absolutely not. There is no way we're treating a serious temporal medical condition with the sickest beats this side of the galaxy," Billy Bob suggested, already coding. "Luna, can you modify your quantum particle device to create rhythm waves? Crash, I need you to set up some temporal resonance chambers." "You mean speakers?" Crash asked. "Yeah, but cooler sounding." Within hours, the medical bay had been transformed into what looked like a cross between a quantum physics lab and an intergalactic rave. Billy Bob's AI was composing music based on the temporal displacement patterns, while Luna's device pulsed in sync with the hiccups. "Okay," Billy Bob announced. "I've created an algorithm that syncs the bass drops perfectly with the temporal fluctuations. When I activate this, everyone's hiccups should reset to the beat." "And if it doesn't work?" the doctor asked nervously. "Then we've invented time-traveling dubstep," Luna shrugged. "Win-win." Billy Bob hit play. The medical bay filled with sounds that could only be described as, "What would happen if you taught a black hole to breakdance?" The bass drops physically rippled through space-time, causing nearby quantum particles to start nodding their heads. The hiccuping aliens froze, then started vibrating in sync with the beat. One by one, their temporal displacement stabilized. The crystalline being stopped high-fiving itself across time. A gaseous entity ceased condensing into past and future states. "It's working!" the doctor exclaimed. "The temporal readings are normalizing. They're... The doctor's mushroom cap started glowing in rhythm with the music. "They're getting down?" Indeed, the formerly afflicted patients were now dancing. The crystalline being had turned itself into a disco ball. The gaseous entity was doing something that might have been the robot, or possibly just having a normal reaction to dubstep. "We did it!" Billy Bob pumped his fist in the air. "The hiccups are cured!" The doctor raised a glowing appendage. "We might have a new problem." "What's that?" "They won't stop dancing, and is that gaseous entity trying to start a mosh pit?" Billy Bob checked his readings. It seems the cure might be slightly addictive. Their bodies have started producing natural temporal bass drops." "You mean..." "Yeah, they're now technically dubstep dependent, but hey, at least they're not hiccuping anymore." The doctor stared at their medical bay, now transformed into an impromptu dance club, complete with a crystalline disco ball and a mosh pit of temporally synchronized aliens. "The council is never going to believe this. Should we not mention the part where my AI has started taking DJ requests?" Billy Bob asked as his holographic screens filled with song suggestions from across time and space. In the great cosmic database, yet another entry was added. "Warning: human medical solutions may involve unauthorized dance parties. Side effects include temporal synchronization, spontaneous raving, and addiction to what they call sick beats. Effectiveness regrettably high." Somewhere in the background, Crash could be heard asking, "So, can I add explosions to the next bass drop or what?" Billy Bob, the algorithm. Johnson sat cross-legged in the medical bay, surrounded by holographic displays showing wave patterns that looked like someone had given a seismograph too much caffeine. Around him, various alien species suffered from space hiccups, a condition that caused them to randomly phase in and out of different temporal states. "Fascinating," he muttered, watching as a crystalline being hiccuped itself 2 minutes into the past and accidentally high-fived itself. "It's like their bodies are playing temporal hopscotch." The head medical officer, who looked like a walking collection of glowing mushrooms, hovered nearby. "We've tried everything: temporal stabilizers, quantum suppressors, holding their breath, drinking water upside down." "Have you tried scaring them?" asked Lot. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called to order, though order might have been a generous term. The quantum star was contentedly pulsing in its containment field, occasionally displaying cat memes. Down in the medical bay, the cured hiccup patients had formed an interspecies dance crew and were planning a tour across the galaxy. And the ancient elevator had started offering guided tours through quantum space-time, complete with commentary and what it considered smooth jazz. Administrator Plink-Plonk's eye stalks were still tied in knots as they addressed the assembly. "We are here to discuss the unprecedented solutions provided by the Earth delegation." "You mean the absolute victory?" Jack O'Malley grinned from his seat, feet propped up on the ancient ceremonial desk again. Behind him, Luna was trying to stop Crash from improving the council chamber's lighting with small explosives, while Billy Bob's AI had somehow gained control of the chamber's environmental systems and was experimenting with mood lighting. "These were not victories," Plink-Plonk protested. "They were successful solutions to previously unsolvable problems," Jack suggested. "Violations of every known law of physics," Plink-Plonk countered. "Laws are more like guidelines anyway," Luna called out, "especially physics laws. They're really more like physics suggestions." A council member who appeared to be made entirely of crystalline logic circuits raised an appendage. "I feel compelled to point out that despite the unorthodox methods, all 3 challenges were, technically speaking, solved. The quantum star is stable," another council member added, "even if it does keep trying to start a meme page." "The space hiccups are cured," a third chimed in, "although we may need to establish some regulations about temporal dance parties." And the crystalline being concluded, "The ancient elevator is not only functional, but has developed a surprisingly engaging personality and a keen interest in Earth's stand-up comedy." Plink-Plonk's eye stalks drooped in defeat. "But they did it all wrong. They used explosions and duct tape and that horrible sound they call dubstep." "Yet here we are," Jack spread his arms wide, "with 3 solved problems and only minimal property damage." "Minimal?" Plink-Plonk squeaked. "There are scorch marks on a quantum level. Those'll buff right out," Crash assured them, still fiddling with something suspiciously explosive-looking. The council chamber erupted into heated debate, with various species arguing in at least 15 different dimensional planes simultaneously. Some were demanding Earth's immediate acceptance into the galactic community. Others were calling for a complete ban on humans near any sensitive equipment. A few were secretly taking notes on human methodology. Finally, the High Counselor, a being of pure energy and bureaucracy, raised all 7 of their force fields for silence. "We have reached a decision." The chamber fell quiet except for the faint sound of bass drops echoing from the medical bay. "Earth will be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council," the High Counselor announced, causing Jack's grin to widen. "However, there will be conditions." "What kind of conditions?" Jack asked, suddenly suspicious. "First, all human solutions must be supervised by at least 3 qualified observers from different species." "Fair enough," Jack shrugged. "Second, the use of duct tape on quantum objects requires prior approval from the Committee of Temporal Adhesives." "We can work with that," Luna nodded. "Third, explosions, no matter how small or allegedly necessary, must be logged and justified in triplicate." Crash looked devastated. "Fourth, the playing of dubstep across dimensional barriers is now strictly regulated." Billy Bob's AI made a sad beeping sound. And finally, the High Counselor's force fields flickered with what might have been amusement. No human shall be allowed to bring, consume, or refer to beer in any official capacity, especially in conjunction with the phrases, "hold my," or "watch this." Now that's just discrimination, Jack protested. It's self-preservation, Plink-Plonk muttered. Furthermore, the High Counselor continued, in recognition of their unique problem-solving abilities, Earth's delegation will be appointed to the newly created position of Emergency Solutions Task Force. You mean when something's so broken that nobody else can fix it? Jack started. We call you, the High Counselor confirmed, though perhaps with more safety protocols this time. And marginally fewer explosions, Plink-Plonk added hopefully. No promises, Crash called out cheerfully. As the council session concluded, Jack couldn't help but notice several species quietly approaching Luna for copies of her quantum particle designs. A group of engineering specialists were cornering Crash to discuss the theoretical applications of controlled demolition in quantum mechanics, and Billy Bob's AI had somehow gotten publishing offers for its new paper, The Universal Bass Drop, a study in cross-dimensional harmony. You know what this means? Jack said to his team as they headed toward the ancient elevator, which greeted them with a cheerful ding and a display full of happy emojis. That we've forever changed how the galaxy approaches problem-solving? Luna suggested. That we've successfully exported Earth chaos to the stars? Billy Bob offered. That we're going to need more explosives? Crash asked hopefully. All of the above, Jack grinned, pulling out his flask. But more importantly, we've taught the galaxy the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the dumbest possible solution is exactly what you need. To human ingenuity, they toasted. The elevator, caught up in the moment, played Also Sprach Zarathustra, as it carried them through 11 dimensions to the parking lot. In the great cosmic database, the final entry was updated one last time. The most dangerous force in the universe is not dark energy, quantum uncertainty, or even temporal paradoxes. It is the human ability to look at an impossible problem and say, I've got a stupid idea that just might work. Success rate, alarmingly high. Recommended safety protocols, yes, all of them, simultaneously. And somewhere in the council chamber, Administrator Plink-Plonk was quietly adding a roll of duct tape to their emergency supplies, just in case. The end. Postscript. 3 months later, the Galactic Council had to add additional regulations specifically prohibiting the use of hot sauce as quantum lubricant, the teaching of TikTok dances to sentient black holes, and the practice of solving temporal paradoxes by, quote, just vibing with it. The humans considered this a challenge rather than a restriction. Billy Bob's AI went on to produce 6 platinum-selling albums of quantum dubstep. The crystalline beings formed a tribute band. Luna's particle accelerator design was officially classified as too spicy for general use, but was kept on file for emergencies. Crash started a consulting business teaching proper explosion techniques to various species. There were surprisingly few casualties. The ancient elevator became a social media influencer, with followers across 17 dimensions. Its motivational speaking tours were consistently sold out. And Jack was kept very busy explaining to various galactic authorities that, no, humans couldn't possibly have caused that particular impossible thing to happen. And even if they did, technically it worked out fine in the end, mostly fine, eventually, close enough.